Geography was either your favorite or least favorite subject in school. There's rarely an in-between. With GPS today, we don't have to worry about where we are, but having a good grasp of geography can still come in handy, especially when you want to wow your friends with some facts. I'm not talking about the longest river stuff, it's the Nile, by the way, any true geography buff knows that. Instead, I'm dipping into how Reno outwesterns Los Angeles, the power of Egypt's location, and even hidden tribes of the world. Interested? Well, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 ridiculous geography facts you won't believe. 25. Istanbul's continental double life. Istanbul, Turkey is the only city in the world that spans two continents. Sitting proudly along the Bosphorus Strait, this city has one foot in Europe and the other in Asia. The strait itself connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, but its real magic lies in its unique geography. Visitors flock to Istanbul to experience this rare phenomenon. Hop on a boat ride and you'll find yourself gazing at Europe on one side and Asia on the other. It's a geography buff's dream, and a selfie enthusiast's paradise. Few places can make you feel like a true globetrotter without ever leaving city limits. 24. Reno outwesterns LA. Here's a geography brainbender for you. Reno, Nevada is further west than Los Angeles, California. Really? Even though Nevada is California's eastern neighbor and LA hugs the Pacific Ocean, Reno still wins the westward race. It's all thanks to the Southern California coastline, which bends southeast as it approaches Mexico. Geographically speaking, Reno is at 119 degrees 49 west, while Los Angeles trails behind at 118 degrees 14 west. That's a full degree and change in longitude, and it places Reno about 1.5 degrees, or roughly 83 miles or 134 kilometers farther west than LA. So Reno, famously dubbed the biggest little city in the world, actually enjoys slightly later sunsets than LA. 23. Odd names, real places. The world is full of places with names that make you do a double take. Let's start with Batman. Not the Cape Crusader, but a city in Turkey with nearly 500,000 people. Pair it with Gotham, Wisconsin, and you've got a match made in comic book heaven. Then there's Hell. Literally. Norway boasts a village named Hell that freezes over every winter, while Michigan has its own Hell, home to just 72 residents. No demons have been spotted yet, but the puns are endless. However, the gold medal for quirky names? That goes to Boring, Oregon, Dull, Scotland, and Bland, Australia. Together they form the tedious trio, proving geography is anything but dull. 22. Landlocked to the extreme. Being landlocked is tough, but being doubly landlocked? That's a very unique logistical nightmare. A doubly landlocked country not only has no direct access to the sea, but it's also completely surrounded by other landlocked nations. This leaves no straightforward route to a port, no easy sea trade, and a heavy reliance on neighbors who are also stuck inland. There are two countries that have it particularly bad: Liechtenstein and Uzbekistan. Tiny Liechtenstein is hemmed in by Austria and Switzerland, both landlocked as well. It doesn't produce much for exports, so it manages to get by. Uzbekistan, on the other hand, has it worse. With 5 landlocked neighbors, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, it's like navigating an endless dry maze. 21. The world's biggest and coldest desert. If you watch our videos regularly, you'll know that Antarctica isn't just the world's biggest desert, it's also the coldest, covering an incredible 5.5 million square miles, or 14.2 million square kilometers. That's significantly larger than the Sahara, which comes in at 3.5 million, or 9 million square kilometers. Deserts are defined by how dry they are, not how hot, and both poles qualify. In fact, Antarctica also holds the record when it comes to extreme temperatures, having once reached negative 128 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 88.9 Celsius. When it comes to dryness, though, the Atacama Desert in Chile wins hands down. With only 0.03 inches or 0.076 centimeters of rain per year, it's so barren that NASA uses it to study Mars-like conditions. Which really says it all, doesn't it? 20. Nature's Desert Symphony. Just one more thing about deserts since I'm on the subject. Did you know some of them sing? In places like the Gobi and the Sahara, you can witness a phenomenon called singing sand dunes. These dunes produce sounds ranging from faint whispers to deep resonant booms as sand grains slide down steep slopes, creating vibrations that generate the sound. But it's not random. The sand has to be dry, silica-rich, and in just the right humidity. Scientists believe that the size of the grains and their movement speed affect the pitch, so bigger grains produce deeper, lower tones, while small grains create higher pitched sounds. 19. Russia is big. Really big. We all know Russia is the largest country in the world. But just how big is it? Well, for starters, it covers an astonishing 6.6 million square miles. That's 17.1 square kilometers. To put that into perspective, the US, a huge country in our own right, only spans 3.8 million square miles, or 9.8 million square kilometers. Russia is so enormous, it accounts for over 1/8 of all the land on Earth. Its sheer size means it needs 11 time zones to keep up with its massive expanse. When it's sunrise in Moscow, it's sunset in the Far East. In total, Russia shares its land with 16 other countries, which is a big part of why it holds such a powerful and complex role on the global stage. 18. Canada's coastlines and lakes. Canada takes the crown for having the longest coastline on Earth, a mind-blowing 151,000 miles or 243,042 kilometers. For comparison, Indonesia, the runner-up, has 33,554 miles, or 54,000 kilometers, and Russia trails at 23,612 miles, or 38,000 kilometers. Given Canada's size, second largest in area, and its numerous islands stretching along its Arctic coastline, it's no wonder. But Canada also has the most lakes in the world, with 879,800 scattered across the country. That's more than every other country combined. In fact, over 60% of the world's 1.4 million lakes are in Canada. Russia comes in second, but honestly, it's not even close. 17. The wonders of the Dead Sea. Fun fact number 1, the Dead Sea isn't a sea at all. It's actually a hypersaline lake, and its salt concentration is off the charts. And that was fun fact number 2. Almost 10 times saltier than the ocean, it's one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world. Its high salinity makes it incredibly buoyant, so much so that you can float on the surface without swimming or treading water. This unique lake also holds the title of the lowest point on Earth, if, altitude facts are your thing. One tip though, don't drink the water. It might be safe for your skin, but consumption is definitely not recommended. 16. Bikes galore. The Netherlands has more bicycles than people, and I'm not just throwing empty words out there. With 18 million residents and 22 million bikes, this Western European nation is a cyclist's paradise. They literally have a bike for every person, plus millions more, just in case. This just shows how committed the Netherlands is to sustainable living. Cities like Amsterdam have prioritized bike-friendly infrastructure, making cycling easier and more convenient than driving in many urban areas. Biking isn't just a mode of transportation here, it's a way of life. It keeps the air cleaner, the streets less crowded, and the people healthier. 15. Volcano-free status. Australia is the only continent on Earth without an active volcano. Even Antarctica, with its extreme conditions, has active volcanoes, like Mount Erebus and Mount Sidley, and it all boils down to location. Australia sits right in the middle of the massive Indo-Australian tectonic plate, safely away from the plate boundaries, where volcanic activity typically occurs as the Earth's crust shifts and grinds. Interestingly enough, the Pacific Ring of Fire, a hotspot for volcanic and seismic activity, runs just to the north and east of Australia. It's kind of ironic that nearby countries like Indonesia and Papua New Guinea frequently have to deal with eruptions, while Australia enjoys geological stability. 14. Australia's empty spaces. Sticking with Australia, it's a fascinating place, prosperous and developed, but its geography isn't exactly friendly. If you look at a population density map, it's pretty clear. Almost everyone lives in the urban hubs of the south and southeast, while the rest of the country is basically empty. That's because most of Australia is made up of harsh, arid land that's tough to live in. From deserts to tropical forests, much of the country simply isn't built for people. And as the driest continent on Earth, Australia is facing a serious water crisis. Even cities like Sydney and Melbourne are getting less rain than usual, which is a big deal for a place already struggling with droughts. 13. The nation of endless islands. Indonesia's geography is truly unique. With over 18,000 islands, it's the largest archipelago in the world, and managing so many islands is no simple task. For centuries, Indonesian kingdoms struggled to connect their lands, especially compared to places like Europe where travel was easier. With so many diverse cultures and communities spread across the islands, bringing them together under one national identity remains a challenge even to this day. On top of that, Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. The country has 136 volcanoes, 61 of which have erupted since 1900. All in all, the region's tectonic activity is so intense that Indonesia experiences earthquakes of magnitude 5.0 or lower almost every day. 12. The power of Egypt's location. Egypt's geography has always been its lifeline. The fertile plains of the Nile Delta made it one of the cradles of civilization. But everything changed with the construction of the Suez Canal in 1868. The man-made waterway connects the Mediterranean and Red Seas, cutting out the need for European ships to sail around the entire African continent to reach Asia. It was a game-changer for global trade, but brought plenty of political turmoil along with it. Since then, Egypt has been at the center of major conflicts tied to control of the canal, from the Suez Crisis in 1956 to the Arab-Israeli War in 1967, and access to the waterway remains a heated issue in the region. 11. Geography's role in China's conflicts. If you look at China's history, one thing becomes clear. Internal strife and conflict have been constant themes. From the massive Taiping Rebellion to countless civil wars, the country has seen its fair share of turmoil. But this isn't a history list. China's geography has a lot to do with it. Most of the population has traditionally lived in the fertile lowlands, while the surrounding highlands, dry and sparsely populated, have served as a natural buffer against northern invaders. Adding to the complexity, China's vast territory is home to many ethnic groups and cultures with differing interests. 10. The mountainous marvel. Almost 70% of Japan's land is covered by mountains and hills, leaving only 20% of the country's land flat enough to farm or build on. That means Japan has some of the most tightly packed cities in the world, with urban areas squeezing into that small sliver of usable land. And while that might sound like a challenge, and it is, the mountainous terrain also makes Japan incredibly unique. The mountains have given the country its famous hot springs, dramatic landscapes, and stunning hiking trails. Plus, they've shaped Japanese culture, from terraced rice farming on steep slopes to centuries of folklore. 9. India's hidden underground world. India is massive, with every kind of landscape you can imagine. But even for a country so explored, it still has its mysteries. One of the most fascinating is Meghalaya in the northeast, home to some of the largest caves in the world. Krempuri, for one, is the world's longest sandstone cave, stretching over 24,000 meters, or 79,000 feet. Then there's Krem Lada, found more recently in February 2019. This cave features a 105-meter or 334-foot deep entrance shaft, making it one of India's deepest known shaft caves. And that's just the start. Experts believe Meghalaya's cave network is much larger than we could possibly imagine. It's a hidden underground world just waiting to be explored. 8. The world's longest place names. The hill known as Tamatataki Tani Hangako o Atamatea Toripoka Kakapiki Manga Horanoku Paki Fenu Aki Tanatahu in New Zealand is famous for having one of the longest geographical names in the world, 85 letters long. The Maori name translates to place where Tamatea, the man with the big knees who slid, climbed, and swallowed mountains known as Land Eater, played his flute to his loved one. For years, it was considered the longest name, and the Guinness Book of Records still lists it as such. However, it's been overtaken by the official ceremonial name of Bangkok, Thailand. Kungtep Mahanakon Amang Ratanakosin Mahintara Ayutataya Mahadilok Pop Naparat Rachachani Boriram Udam Rachaniwet Mahasatan Aman Piman Awatan Satit Sakatitaya Watsanakam Prasit, which comes in at an incredible 163 letters, and means the city of angels, the great city, the eternal jewel city, the impregnable city of god Indra, the grand capital of the world endowed with 9 precious gems, the happy city abounding in an enormous royal palace that resembles the heavenly abode where reigns the reincarnated god, a city given by Indra and built by Vishnu Karma. Or just Bangkok. 7. The hidden tribes of the world. Much has been said about North Sentinel Island and its uncontacted tribe, especially after a missionary lost his life trying to make contact in 2018. A lot of people think that they're the only uncontacted people left in the world, but that's far from true. The Javari, who live deep in the Amazon's Javari Valley, have also resisted all attempts at communication, and their isolation is for good reason. Tribes like the Javari are vulnerable to diseases that the rest of us have developed immunity to, and even brief contact could be catastrophic for them. Sadly, they still face threats from outsiders like gold miners, further reinforcing their need to remain undisturbed. 6. A tiny republic with a big legacy. San Marino, tucked away inside Italy, proudly holds the title of the world's oldest constitutional republic. It was founded way back in 301 by Saint Marinus, a Christian stonemason fleeing persecution under Roman Emperor Diocletian. In fact, its constitution, written in 1600, is still in effect, making it the oldest written constitution in the world. The tiny republic has managed to stay independent over the centuries thanks to its strategic alliances and mountainous terrain, a legacy that has over 1,700 years of independence and tradition behind it. 5. Yellowstone's legal loophole. Believe it or not, there's a spot in Yellowstone where you could theoretically get away with murder. It's called the Zone of Death, a 50 square mile patch of land in Idaho's portion of the park where legal loopholes come into play. Here's how it works. Or doesn't. The Sixth Amendment says you have to be tried by a jury made up of people from both the state and district where a crime occurred. But since this area is in Idaho, and the entire park is under Wyoming's jurisdiction, forming a jury is impossible. Thankfully, no one's tested the loophole. Yet. Maybe I shouldn't have told you. Don't commit murder in Yellowstone. It's a PSA. 4. The last frontier. Papua New Guinea has always been a bit of a mystery. It used to be known as that place with cannibals and unexplored landscapes, but the cannibalism part is long gone. That said, much of the land is still untapped and hard to reach. The Wildlife Conservation Society explored the Hindenburg Wall, a massive limestone plateau, in 2013, and over 1,100 species, 89 of which were completely new to science, were discovered to be living there. In 2010, an expedition to the Nakanai Mountains found new species of frogs, insects, and spiders. So new that scientists had to create entirely new classifications for them. With so much left to explore, especially underwater, Papua New Guinea is definitely one of the last frontiers. 3. The islands that are 21 hours and 2 miles apart. Time zones make perfect sense. Until they don't. They've helped make our days more predictable, but they can get downright weird. And the Diomede Islands are a perfect example. Separated by just 2 miles in the Bering Strait, Big Diomede belongs to Russia and Little Diomede to the USA. Despite their close distance from each other, they are 21 hours apart because of the international date line. So, if you're on Big Diomede, you could speedboat to Little Diomede and arrive yesterday, then head back and return to tomorrow. Classic time zone chaos. 2. The world's one-letter places. Remember those places with the long names I mentioned earlier? Well, did you know there's a flip side to this coin? Places with just one-letter names. A classic example is River D in Oregon. This tiny waterway, just 120 feet long, sparked a decades-long battle with the Guinness World Records to be recognized as the shortest river. In 2006, Guinness dropped the record, leaving D lovers with a moral victory. And D isn't alone. There's All, a village in Norway, a village in Denmark, and a few other places with single-letter names scattered across Scandinavia. So yes, sometimes less really is more. 1. The whole world map is wrong. When we look at a world map, we don't usually stop and question its accuracy. We trust the map. It's something we rely on daily, so it must be right, right? Well, unfortunately, the world map isn't accurate at all. It heavily exaggerates the size of the Northern Hemisphere. For instance, Greenland looks just as big as Africa, but Africa's actually 14.5 times bigger. In fact, most continents south of the equator appear much smaller than they actually are. This happens because the Mercator projection map stretches and distorts Earth's round shape when it's turned into a flat 2D image. So, the next time you look at a map, remember, what you see isn't exactly what you get. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed today's facts, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fun, weird, and unexpected content. Got a favorite fact from today's list? Drop it in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. And hey, if you're into true crime, which has nothing to do with geography, be sure to check out our other channel, Dark Roast Detectives, for more fascinating content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.